Hey, Geoff.
What's up? I got
Nothing. Long time no speak.
right. I got caught. I was trying to. That 30 seconds is just not enough time for me to be able to get the shares out to Facebook. So hopefully, whenever people come on, they can share it onto their profile as well. Um, I'll try and get them sent out here
All
in a
right.
second, or
Well,
we can just take the
these are
basically.
just kinks, man. We'll have to work it out, but it's okay. But this is it. This is what we have spent. I don't know what 6 months in
Yeah,
the planning for. This is episode 1 of the
episode
What
one.
the BLUF podcast.
Absolutely. So hey, what is
High five.
look? Boom.
There,
There we
there it
go.
is. High five.
What is the bluff? So I had somebody messaging me earlier asking, they were like, so what is the bluff, right? And then so I did that teaser on IG with us talking about, the dichotomy and everything like that. And they're like, yo, so what's bluff? And then my other
So
friend that's in the group with me, he's an ex-marine. So he's like, dude, I haven't heard bluff in like a long time. Like, so he was like, basically it's cut the bull stuff, the bull crap, and then like just give me the real. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
Yeah, that's it exactly. And it's funny because the more you get military members out in the corporate world and things like this, the more common it is. But it's not just a military term, it's used a lot. I don't know if that's because we're bringing it into business, but it means the bottom line up front. BLUF, give me the bottom line up front. So it's skip the labor, show me the baby, right? All that kind of stuff. And why did we choose that? When we were thinking about what we were going to name this, because there's no one single bluff, right? It depends.
it
We've written
depends.
a bunch of journals. It depends, right? We
Right.
don't know what the bluff is. So I think the bluff is going to change week to week, and that's for people to decide, because I think everybody has their own bottom line. And we're going to have one on our podcasts, and so we decided to call it "What the Bluff." It's a nod to our initial meeting 2 decades ago. 20 years, man. I
What
mean,
what do they what
if
do
not
they call
exactly
that?
nearly.
What is what a score? Is that a score? Four score.
For score, no,
Four
not quite.
score is 7 years ago.
Yeah, no, it
What's the
hasn't been
score?
quite that long, but it has been. I mean, when you sit there and think about it, I mean, really think about this. It was 18 years ago was that first deployment.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 18 years, and we've known each other, or of each other, or at least names of each other, because of how we first met for quite a long time. So this is whoa. When we say that way leads on to way with journey, we have really taken a roundabout route to get here, and I think that's going to be a fun thing for us to explore. How do we get here? How do we even have an association to bring it
Well,
over here? So
isn't that that's the crazy part, because like in the military community, this would like not really be cool.
nope.
You know what I'm saying? Because like that, but on the outside it's a little bit different. Because I'm obviously no longer in, and this just the
What gave it away, Jeff? Is it the beard?
I mean, I'm unless I'm special forces or something like that now that we just don't talk about, right? Maybe I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but you're right. This relationship, like the way that we've developed it, we wouldn't have an opportunity to make that happen. So
And then if you think even okay, so before we even dive like into the introduction, right?
mhm.
Even after the deployment, after the military and stuff like that, we still probably wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been like very. It would have been frowned upon for us to associate. Okay, so like, look at my hat, right? I'm the outlaw, you're the law, right? Like, you're the lawmaker, I'm the lawbreaker. Like, we're, you know,
If we would have met Jeff, it would have been
it would have
a
been
much
in the courtroom. It would have been like, I would have been in shackles, and then you'd have been like, man, you just like something else, huh?
Yeah, but I laugh about that all the time, because that's the journey. That's, that's how things brought around and everything else. But when we first met, we were just, you were, I think in E4, you were a specialist
Yes.
when we
I was a
first
career.
met.
I was a career E4.
A career. Well,
I
I wasn't
retired at
gonna,
E4.
I wasn't gonna bring it down there, but so
I tell
you were
everybody that.
E4 in Alpha Company.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. So you were a gator down in Alpha Company over there in Alpaloosas, and I was up at the battalion. I was a captain. I was the adjutant, right? The battalion personnel officer. So I knew every single soldier in the 1088th Engineer Battalion. It was my job. So I've known your name at very least since you came into the unit, because that's how it happened and how it worked. And then of course the deployment, and you get to know the soldiers in a much, much different way. And you had a very interesting mission during our first deployment. And then we came home. How much longer were you in after we got home in 2005?
Till 2015.
Okay, so
I
you were
did
in for a
12
while.
years.
So okay, so I was in battalion, and then I was over at OCS, and then I came back, and then they had the transition. So you
I
actually were
went Delta
there.
Company. I re-MOSQ'd and everything into infantry.
Okay.
And then
So
I was just dealing with I started taking some medication whenever I got back,
for
and
the injuries, yeah.
to help me with the dreams and stuff like that. And so I had an issue at Camp Beauregard where I like flashed out and it just didn't really end well. So they brought me to Bain Jones. Um,
I
and then
remember that.
like they had me on lock, like my truck, like it was a drill weekend where we were doing like some processing or some
What year was
paperwork or
this?
whew.
So in 2010, what unit were you in? Were you in the special troops and the BSTB?
Was that for what was that for? Was that
That was
for
what the 1088th became. So the 1088th became the BSTB.
oh so
Or had you left by then and gone to a different unit?
I stayed at Alpha. I went and I am I can't talk. Delta Company. It turned it
Okay.
when it wrote to what do you call it? Re-MOSQ'd is Delta 3 D3156.
Okay. Yeah, when it moved over, okay, to 3rd Battalion. Okay, so at any rate, so our military association would have ended somewhere around there when the BSTB, when it all reorganized, right? When the 256 did the whole reorg, Alpha Company went over into 3rd Battalion. I stayed with the BSTB, and then we had the second deployment. And then you were out in 2015. And then I think by 2015, I was already at Joint Force Headquarters. So we wouldn't have really known each other then. But the way that we've reconnected is really interesting, because there's so many of us that are using social media, right? So you see somebody who sees somebody who sees somebody, and you kind of link in. And I don't remember how we became friends, but I know that moment, even though I can't remember it, was one of those precipitous game changer kind of moments, because as I followed your path up and down, it led us here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the funny thing about, I always say this, as way leads on to way. You may have left in 2015, but we reconnected a couple years later when, in a personal way.
Yeah.
I think when you switched the direction of your life and started setting up to get us here. So
Well, I started journaling a lot, and then like just kind of I was trying to figure out my path, and while I was in PTSD and TBI treatment at the VA in Biloxi, now I had been kicked out of there twice prior to that. I started sharing my journals on Facebook, and I think that's kind of how we connected, because
I started reading and commenting and things like this. And y'all, I know we're talking about a lot of things and may not be familiar, but stick with us, because as we go on and develop these things, you're going to get all of these stories to figure out what is Geoff talking about with TBI and all these kinds of things. And we do have, I think we have some journals later on that really in later weeks that are going to give us an opportunity to talk about some of those things. But so our first, this is what we decided to do, right? When we talked about how we want to do this podcast, we decided that we were going to come up with a word of the week, basically. and we were going to journal about these kinds of things. And we just started listing words, basically reaching into a hat, and we picked one. And Geoff, what was our first word?
Communication.
Communication.
That's what we're doing right now. It's and it's, I think it's very key to, even though whether you have either effective communication or you have ineffective communication. There's not really like an in between, because either you understand what somebody's saying or you don't understand what you can't just say, oh well, we had neutral communication. Like, you know what I'm saying? You either got it or you didn't. So the funny thing is that, like I told you, like I mentioned to you earlier, uh, we're so, our thoughts and stuff run, so we're so different, right? But we're very parallel. Like, we're not on the same path, but hey, just to go from California to New York, we can be on different interstates,
And have the
and
same destination in mind.
still have the same destination. So like, you might be going over the mountains, I might be taking the long route and then taking the south coast. Like,
Well, I'm definitely going to be in the mountains. If I'm anywhere, I'm going to be in the mountains. That's kind of, yeah. So what do you have bullets that you set aside? Because we don't want to share the entire journal, right? We don't want to color what people think about communication. We just want to give you some bites and some things like that, so you can see where we're thinking and how we can bring these things together. When we get our website up and running, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was allowing people the chance to share their own thoughts and kind of create a community of people who have these ideas. So, but Geoff, you had a great quote about communication. What did you say?
So it might not have been exactly a direct relation to communication, but it has to do with leadership, right? And so the quote goes, "When you were made a leader, you weren't given a crown. You were given a responsibility to bring out the best in others." And that's by Jack Welch. And I have one other one, because I always try to go above and beyond. And I think it's very relative to like the path that I live, the path that I've been on is, and many people, not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path.
Why do you say that communication is not a direct tie with leadership? I'm curious.
You know what? You're probably right. Leadership, communication, and being a good leader and communication is absolutely key. I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you, it's a sister of leadership. I think that if you can't communicate effectively, then you can't lead, right? But there was something else that we were talking about earlier today. We were talking about ownership of ideas, right? So in order to be an advocate for yourself, you have to own your own ideas, and you have to be able to effectively communicate them. So when you texted me earlier, I went through and I found a couple quotes. Some of them I opted not to bring in, just because I think that while I might like the quote, I'm not thrilled with the source. So I try to find something different where I could like and respect both. So this one is from Sean Stevenson, and I don't know much about Sean Stevenson. I know he passed away a couple of years ago. He's an American author, and he wrote one of the most amazing quotes about communication I've ever heard. Communication is merely an exchange of information, but connection is an exchange of humanity. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, right? We're not just communicating with each other. We've communicated ideas in order to establish a connection. And then we decided to see if we couldn't bring this kind of connection with people with whom we might never actually come in direct contact. So that's what this great thing, right, about a podcast or the blogs and things like that we want to write to go along with it is, we're not just trying to communicate ideas, we're trying to connect with other humans. Because connection is the art of spreading yourself into someone else, right? And taking in what they can give you and forming that bond. Because how do we form those kinds of things? Like, how do we form community? How do we form neighbors? How do we form these kinds of things within our own country if we can't communicate with each other? So I don't know. Sean Stevenson, I'm going to have to pull some of his books and see what that man wrote, because that's a pretty darn good quote, I think.
Did you say you had some other ones too?
I do. You want to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Okay.
was like,
So,
I'm thinking that you're gonna do like me and just like drop the whole bag on me, you know?
well, this is James Humes. Now, I like James Humes. He's a presidential speechwriter. He wrote a book that I really enjoyed called, what was it? Speak Like Churchill, Stand Like Lincoln, or was it Stand Like Churchill, Speak something with Lincoln? I don't know. Anyway, I really enjoyed the book. It was speech writing things, and he wrote, "The art of communication is the language of leadership." So that's why I asked you. You said, "I wonder." It's not really a tangential relationship between communication and leadership. It's really kind of part and parcel of itself.
I think
So
you
where's
said it
our
was
common ground?
speak like Churchill, stand like Lincoln.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. That was what you
Yeah,
had texted.
I think that's what it is. James Humes. Speak like Churchill, stand like Lincoln. So it was a great book. Short book, too. Some of the things in there were kind of,
And then, so what's the connection between those two? They were both literally. And look, I hadn't told you what I was sharing.
mm-mm.
And again, it goes back to that parallel, the parallel I mind. You know what I'm saying? Of
Mm-hmm.
like our thoughts, right? Of going back to basically being leadership. You know, there's so many times when we share our journals that we have a weird like connection with our words and like the journey, but on a whole different like, you
It
know,
is.
so it's very unique. It's very cool. I've not had that kind of like lineage, or what, if you want to, if that would be the right word, I think.
It's, yeah, it's like we're arriving at, see, I have my pen. It's like my magic wand in my hands. It's like we're arriving at the same conclusion, but from a very different perspective. So we really do reflect that a lot in our writing, and I'm excited to go through there, because it kind of, so earlier today, teaser, you only got a little bit. I know that Geoff only put a very small bit on Instagram,
That's
but
the
we
whole
were
point.
talking, we were talking, kind of extensively about what, communication. Why is it so important? And I teach this to my kids all the time, whether my own kids, and when I was a teacher, I used to teach them you have to advocate for yourself. So you have to know what it is that you want, and then you have to own what you want, and you have to be able to understand what you need enough to ask for it in a way that you get that right result, right? So leadership is part of owning who you are and what your needs are and what your wants are. So I don't think that our ideas really diverge all that much when we're talking about communication. I think they get there in the end, because basically we can't change, fix, do, understand, connect with anything or anyone until we effectively learn how to say what it is that's on our minds. How we can, how we can shade intention with nuance of our words. Now, I mean, I love words. You know that I love words. You've been reading all my stuff for forever on Facebook, and I've always used Facebook as like my online journal. So I know you've been reading it for a long time, but I think words have power, and words have meaning, and they're nuanced and they're shaded, and they change values and perceptions if you're open to that change. But you have to have the thought, right? How can you advocate for yourself if you don't know what it is that you're asking for, or what it is that you need, or how to say it?
Yeah, and it's funny that that's one of the things that you brought up. And this is going to be another little bit of a spoiler. We're going to try to get. I hope I'm not saying this too early. We're going to try and get people on the same like a book club. We want people to
Mm-hmm.
read the literature. So right now we're going through a book together, and it talks about communication and asking for what you want. And the name of the book is what is it? Aladdin
Yeah,
Factor,
yeah.
right? Jack Canfield.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's real big into like laws of attraction and things like that. Was the book Chicken Soup? Uh,
Well, Jack Canfield has a huge empire of all of these things that are, all about advocacy and gratitude and, reshaping your life so that you live more altruistically. So yeah, the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, that's all Jack Canfield. And this one's a good thing, The Aladdin Factor. So that's the first book that Geoff and I are going to be reading together. Now, that's not the first book that we've read the same of. Like, I'm reading some books right now that you've recommended over the last few months, and I have multiple books going at once, right? So I know that's a thing.
Hey, I
I
read
can do that,
60.
Geoff. It makes Geoff crazy. How can you have 4 and 5 books at a time? I'm like, I have to. I read according to mood. So
And I freaking, hey, so I was like, look, I know that she's going to read 50 freaking pages of this book by tomorrow. So I read 16 pages last night of that book, and then I did 10 pages of my other book. So like I sat
you
down, I
can
didn't
stay
go to
on
bed until
target.
like 11. So I was like, look, you know what? Like this is what this means to me. This is what this podcast means to me. This is what making sure that I know the information that we're talking about. And because I don't like to go anywhere and not know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just I I'll fly by the seat of my pants, but I have to know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like this podcast, I don't have to have notes because I can get on here and talk because I've built that confidence in myself. But that's because I know what I'm doing. I know I can talk. I know we have chemistry. I know we can say stuff. I know we can communicate and come up with valuable content from the heart. So
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to how we evolve this thing because we have a framework right now, right? So we've got our buddy check. We've got all the things we want to talk about with the quotes, our journals. The book club is something that we're going to introduce. I think the next time we're going to kind of maybe as we're developing our website and we're still working that in the background, we'll put on this is where we're reading, some food for thought. I think part of our goal is to get interaction between anybody who watches this or listens to this podcast and then interacts with us on Facebook, because that's what we're trying to form, right? So that's why our BLUF this week is communication, because that's really the BLUF of anything that we're doing is we're trying to establish that connection with people. And you can't connect, so we need the feedback and things like this. And I'm loving some of the comments that are coming through on the sideline.
so what is the and so what Patrick
Patrick is
said
telling us to slow down a little bit. Sorry. I don't know how. I sometimes I read a book and I sit there and I go through it. The only way I find that I can slow down is if it's like a task list. So if I read something and I'm like, I got to put this down because I got to start writing response, or I have to annotate this, or I can't stop at 10. Not if it's compelling.
and I have a hard time like wanting to go through. Like there are some books that I get so into, like I just want it to last forever because, like we talked about the other day, I'll get a little bit of like separation anxiety or something like that,
It's
and then
grief.
I'm like, what else is going to compare to this right now? Because I'm like, the next book better be good, or I'm not. You know.
I, you know, so you get to the end of a book sometimes, and I'm a reader and I'm a rereader, because the first time you read for context, right? The next time you read, you can read for other things that you may have missed or stuff like that. So I reread, but there's nothing better than when you read through an amazing book for the very first time and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what development, you don't know what the conclusion is in a nonfiction book, but then you get to the end of it and your heart just sinks and there's a grief, and you look around and the world is continuing on like normal, as if the world didn't just end because you closed the book. And you just don't, it's hard. There's a
Yeah.
grief in that with a really good book.
There's so
So,
much
but the good thing
power in
about
those
Jack
words.
Canfield is that the man's prolific. There's about 50,000 books and things like that we can read.
Yeah.
So it never quite has to end. Malcolm Gladwell is similar. So the books are going to be great. And that's going to allow us to really, I think, connect with people. So book suggestions and things like that. I mean, Geoff and I read a lot, but I mean, we certainly can't read everything. I remember a story. The librarian said that when she was a little girl, she used to stay in the A's, and she said, I'm going to read all the books in the A's, and then I'm going to move on to the B's. And the librarian told her, you'll never leave the A's. because new things are published all the time. So that's the wonderful thing about books, is that they're always going to be there, and there's always going to be the next most amazing book. So
right, because there's so, I mean, when you have people, you have an infinite amount of knowledge. There's 9 billion people in the world. I mean, and one
isn't
thing,
that incredible?
So our goal is to, when we connect with people, and my goal is, there's 9 billion people in the world now, and this number that I'm going to say is scary, but there's a method to this. You may want to impact 1 million people. And that's a lot of people. I want to go. I try to set goals so massive that even if you fail, you still fall. Like, I want to shoot so far out of the universe that I'm still falling on the stars. That I'm still falling so far ahead of like
That's
the
Emerson.
average mind setting.
You're bringing Emerson into this now. Nice.
I never heard that before. So I thought that I was the one that created that.
Yeah. What is it? Shoot for the moon. You may miss the moon, but you'll still land among the stars. Now, okay.
I did. Yeah, you know what? I did.
Yeah, let's not talk about the astrophysics of all that kind of thing. We know that that's not really, but yeah, I agree with you. You're not going to catch your goal if you're shooting for the medium. You got to shoot high. You can't shoot for the median, because you'll reach it every time. What's the goal in that? What's the fun in that? So aim high. I mean, who's to say? We don't know. There's a lot of things that are coming up in the past, and I'm not going to be the one to sit here and say, not going to happen, Geoff. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to say that, because what do I know? Not a whole lot. So
impact 1 billion lives.
Is that on your vision board?
Impact 1 billion people.
That's on your vision board?
It's not, but it will be. So that number is what we're doing right now. Let's just say there's 6 people live on here. Well, there was over 160 people saw that teaser from earlier. Okay, so when you got those people sharing this, that's putting that web out. Now your impact, it's like those fingers are doing like this. So in here, we're like this, but then when it starts getting shared, that network grows, and that's how you get to 1 billion people. When 1 billion people know you, you're impacting 1 billion people with your positivity, with your mindset, with your ideas, with your thoughts, with your suggestions, and ways. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way. That's how we're going to get to that 1 billion, is by starting right here. It's not going to. Social media, as much as people want to say like, oh, Facebook is trash, or like social media is trash, I beg to differ. You see something negative, you can scroll right on past it. It doesn't even hurt your feelings. The second that it affects you in a negative way, I don't want to see that. You see that, say that negative stuff from one person one too many times, delete that SOB, man. Get that stuff out of your arena, out of your vision.
Social media is a thing. It's a tool. It's neither a positive nor a negative. It is what you put in and take from it. So if you subscribe to those things that drive you into those rages and passions and anger, and if you use it as a platform to spew hate and vitriol and things like that, then it's gonna be that tool for poor and things like that. It's gonna be the thing, if we don't control it and teach our kids how to use it, that leads to those negative things. But it's a thing. It's neither positive nor negative. And I gotta tell you, we're already starting ahead of expectations, because I knew for sure that there's gonna be one person who was going to watch. I knew Mama T, because I can see her over here on the sidelines. I knew Mama T was going to be on and watching this. And I tell you, she's my kind of lady, because it was right there. In my opinion, you can read the same book every day and pick up something different. It just depends on your mindset. That, high five, Mama T, because that's exactly what it is. And I'll tell you,
mindset.
We have already surpassed my expectation by 6 people, because I knew for sure we'd get 1, but we got 6 more than we anticipated. So that, to me, that's already a win. So you're right. Social media can be a fantastic tool. And if this is how we can get through to a person who maybe connects with something that we've said here, and they say, that's something to think about, or I haven't heard that before, or I want to be that way, or I need to do this. If you do those kinds of things, then we've reached somebody. I mean, what kind of an amazing life is it to know that somebody was impacted just because you were alive on a particular day.
That's powerful.
I mean, it's huge, and it's a responsibility, and it's just so humbling to think that somebody out there is affected in a positive way and maybe inspired to something or read something that they thought that they weren't going to read. And that's my goal, right? You got the million people, we're going to work the billion people, and we're going to work to get there. We're going to build this thing and everything else. My goal, I just want somebody to sit here and say, it is a better day because I heard this. So I like that kind of stuff.
Hey, you building a supporter club already. We got
Oh, well, she and I go back a long way. That little one and I, that was a favorite of mine. That was way back in my early life and my youth when I was a high school teacher. I taught social studies. Oh, Geoff, I've done some stuff, man.
And then with teaching, how many people do you think you've taught? For how many years? And you got to think how many people were in that class, how many kids, if you think, I don't know if you know, and I mean, actually, I think I'm sure you do because I think I recall you sharing something because, like, I was like, man, no matter what, anytime that I ever saw you and your husband, and I crossed y'all on deployment or anywhere, right? But mainly on deployment. This is one of the main things that I really, truly like just stuck out is how kind you were. Like, if I ever saw you, you always would smile or like wave or, just like, I mean, just like you always had a pleasant greeting or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that deployment was hard on a lot of people, so it didn't matter. Like, you never know what the next person's going through at any given point. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if it's a deployment, but just something simple like a smile, hey, how are you doing? Like, and mean it. Like, so many people go through life and pass in passing on a sidewalk, and they're like, hey, how are you doing? And then like, I'm good. How are you? And then the other person doesn't respond. You know why? Because they didn't they didn't care. They didn't say it with intention anyway. You know what I'm saying? The intention of how you say the words that you come out of your mouth are everything. You know what I'm saying?
Or it's in passing, right? Yeah. Or you walk past somebody, say, hey, how you doing? And by the time they answer, they're already 10 feet behind you.
Right.
So here's a challenge, because this really is challenging, because one of the hardest things to do is to actually look somebody in the eye and look at them and acknowledge their humanity and say, hey, how are you today? And then stop and care and wait for the answer. You'll shock people. You'll shock people. And it's something I've tried to build that habit. And there's sometimes it's really hard to do because you're in a place with yourself every moment of the day, right? So I'm not always positive. And although I strive to be, I'm sure that you can wrangle up a pretty good number of people who said that an encounter with me maybe wasn't kind. It might have been something that had them shaking in their boots, or it may have been something that they'd really rather not repeat. I mean, I try always to be respectful of somebody's humanity, but a challenge for everybody is to, in your workday or in the grocery store or wherever you're walking or passing people or encountering people, look at them and offer a greeting, good morning, good afternoon, like actually look at them. Kind of like Avatar, right? Did you ever see Avatar? You haven't seen Avatar, have you?
Probably not.
We talked about this one time. Okay, add this to a list. Just add it to a list. You need to, Geoff.
I don't watch much TV.
I know, but okay. So Avatar has this great thing. Okay, so the
comes from you.
So the Na'vi have this great thing, and I can't pronounce it, and I can never remember what it is in Na'vi. But their thing is actually, their greeting is "I see you," but not that it's just "I see you," like I see you in front of me, but it's, I see into you. I see who you are. I see your humanity. I actually see you and acknowledge your dignity as a person. And it's such a beautiful and powerful thing. And I know I have mentored that to people, and they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm okay with that, because my goal is to acknowledge the humanity in everybody, because I think that people are born with dignity and worth. What you do with that is up to you. But if I can communicate and connect with somebody just through simple eye contact, or I look at you and acknowledging, I don't know what that person's going through in a day. Maybe that acknowledgement is something that helps them feel seen and acknowledged and relevant. Because how many times have you gone through and said to yourself, I don't even feel like I'm here. Like I could not be here, and maybe I could, leave this meeting and nobody would even notice. So maybe if you look at somebody, maybe they feel seen, valued somehow. Right?
Yeah, because how passive is it to just say it in passing and not even look there? That's like
Yeah. Hey, how you
zero
doing?
zero acknowledgement. Like, you know, um, mom said, eye contact means so much. Also, a person can be smiling and look happy, and inside they need someone to be real.
Yeah. And it's just, resiliency, right? So, I don't remember what year it was. Honest to God, it might have been 2013, 2015. I don't know. It was the kind of thing where the Army recognized that it was having an issue with soldiers developing resiliency skills. We know we have a huge, huge problem in the military with self-harm and things like this. And it's something that we've been trying to combat in various ways. So the Army sent me to resiliency school, which they developed at the UPenn. I think Johns Hopkins had some place in that. And some of the things you look for is hunt the good stuff, right? So at the end of a day, when you go through your day, you think about what 3 things happened to me today that were good. And a lot of people are trying to think of the big, huge things, right? I won $1 million. I got a promotion. No, 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 no. That's not necessarily what a good
That's
thing
too
is.
big. That's too big.
Yeah, maybe the good thing is this long-haired, tattooed, totally jacked and swole, bearded guy with an outlaw baseball hat looked at me and smiled and winked at my baby girl and made her giggle. And I was just having a crap day. And maybe that was a game changer just because you looked at them and acknowledged them, So, like, be that person and be that energy. And I know you can't always, right? Because sometimes things just really suck. They really just do. And sometimes you need that from somebody else. But boy, wouldn't that be a powerful thing if we actually gave a crap about people as we walked by them on the street and said, you know what? I acknowledge the fact that you and I are walking this path at the same time today, and we're both on this earth together.
What you just said right there. I'm gonna not disagree with you, but when you said sometimes life just sucks, 100% agree with that, and sometimes you need it from somebody else. 100% agree with that. But a different perspective, and one of the things that we talk about at First Form is like, if you need somebody, you want somebody to meet you halfway, go first. If you need that connection, you need to reach out first. You need to like try to set up, like you need to be intentional. If you want connection, if you need somebody to be like, whatever, like you're going to have to go first. We always say, just meet me halfway, but go first. We always take that initiative. If you're not taking that initiative, like, and then you were just talking about this list, right? About finding these wins. Every day I start my day out, I have a power list. I write it the night before. I go through the days, and if I do these 5 tasks, that's a win for my day. I post it in my stories every day because I'm working on also creating a I was going to call it something else, but we're going to call it a intestinal fortitude type challenge.
Okay.
And it's not fully set into play yet, but I got the idea from Andy Frisella. He's got the 75 hard program. Well, this is something.
I know some people doing that.
It's something a little. It's a little bit different, and one of the things that so on my power list every day, these are my tasks. Number 1 is make your bed, right? And then there's a book on this, right?
Yep.
The Admiral, right?
Yep. Fantastic.
And then the second thing is get into the VT Learning Center. Nobody's going to know what that is unless you're in the same program that I'm in with First Form. but some type of like,
I like the
you
idea
would,
of a power list. That's good.
so the learning center is my number two, and that's just education in my field, right? So that's one of the things that we do is our VT learning center. The third thing is track your nutrition, track your macros. The fourth thing is journal. The fifth thing is read 10 pages a day, because it doesn't, if you you might not have time to read 50, but you got 10 to 15 minutes to read 10. And no matter how bad that I don't want to do it, there's something in those 10 pages that I'm going to pick up. And at the end of the day, that's my win. It doesn't matter how poopy or crappy the day was. That is what I control. It doesn't matter how good or bad the day was. That is how I set myself up for a win every day. And those are non negotiable, zero compromise every day. Now, instead of it being the VT Learning Center, maybe it's get a workout in. Maybe it's a,
Mm-hmm.
45-minute walk or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So then it would be make your bed, do your workout, do track your macros, journal, freaking and read your 10 pages.
Yeah.
And then we have a thought for the day. And then at the bottom you circle your win. And then to the right of that, it's the book is not big. It's a power. It's called The Power List by Andy Frisella or whatever. Matter of fact, look, it's right here. I have it right
All
here.
right. That'll be a next book. We'll look at that one.
Well, it's empty. It's just it's
Mm-hmm.
just Oh well,
But I like that because what that does is that puts you in charge of your ownership of your decisions in your life. I like it because it requires discipline, and you know that you're not going to achieve any of your goals, right? If you don't write them down and if you don't have the discipline to go after them, right? Because if you don't write down a goal, it's just a wish, and wishes don't come true unless you write them down, plan for them, and work for it, right?
yeah. And
But
these
a
are
few minutes
simple
ago,
tasks.
yeah,
Super
they are. They're
simple.
not difficult. So I mean, I'm thinking about it. Okay, I wake up every morning and make my bed. Right? Sometimes it's more difficult to do because I'm not necessarily the last person or the last creature out of my bed because there could be four-legged things in there as well. Dogs, cats, husband, but that's make the bed is the thing because I love a beautifully made bed, right? It's nice to get into at the end of the day. It feels good. So gratitude journal, my friend Kim has been really working hard with me to try to get that done every day. And I've been actually writing it down because I use Facebook for that. But I find that actually using my handwriting cements it a little bit better for me. Exercise, coffee, and mindfulness. And sometimes it's just noticing things, right? How many times do you go to bed at night and think to yourself, or could you say to yourself, I never even looked at the sky once today?
Right. Be
So
appreciative.
because you go through your day, but you never notice where you are. So coffee and mindfulness for me every morning, that's got to happen. And then, the workout. So, but you said something earlier and I thought about it because I know how hard it is for me. You said you have to meet people halfway. So asking for help when you need it, right? Being able to reach out so that somebody knows I'm in need right now. I'm usually the one who's there, but now I need you. Asking for help, I think, is one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do. I think it's even more difficult for a lot of people than apologizing, is asking for help. Because especially in our mindset, right? We come up in a certain kind of thing where asking for help is a weakness. We're trying to break that stigma that asking for help is a personal strength and recognizing that you can get through, but you might need a little bit of help to get through. And I remember a time when somebody said, I'm going to put you on this list so people can bring you some dinner. And I'm like, I don't need anybody to bring me dinner. And she looked at me, she's like, Christina, we know that you don't need it, but maybe people need to reach out to you and be a part of your life at this point in time. And maybe you shouldn't have to do it all by yourself. It's not an acknowledgement of you can't, but it's an acknowledgement of let us help. But unless you ask for it, people don't necessarily know that you're in need. So you got to have the personal strength to actually be able to reach out and meet people halfway. That's a hard thing to do, I
Yeah,
think.
I agree.
I've had to train myself to ask for help.
I I'm sure. I'm sure you remember my post from about 112 days ago, 115 days ago, talking about alcohol.
I do.
So, um, I'll kind of go through a little bit of my story, and then kind of highlight that, because I one of the things that we didn't do in the introduction is talk about talk about who we actually were.
Well,
Actually
we
were.
can do that. We can do that now. We can wrap up that way. We can
Um,
talk about that. So now you've stuck with us. So now we're going to tell you who we are. Geoff?
so, my name's Geoff Spire. I did 12 years in the military. I'm originally from Louisiana. I was Army National Guard. I did an 18-month deployment. We did 12 months boots on ground infantry, combat engineer. I worked with EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, and we did route clearance missions. And then every once in a while, we would do like VIP escorts. Um, Upon returning home from the deployment, I developed PTSD and TBI, and I started to really struggle with that. I didn't know what it was. Um, and
Now,
then
remember, this is as a caveat. We're talking early days here. This is 2004, 2005. Okay, so I don't want to. This is a very long time ago when we're still learning all these things and getting better. But go ahead.
So by the time that I actually understood um, this, I guess I should highlight this, is that when when going through demob, we were told that if you said that you had anything wrong with you, you were going to spend an additional 2.5 to 3 months, and that's something that I've like battled with talking about, because I was like, man, I just don't want to bash my leadership, right? Like I don't, but if it's true, it's true. So I was told, or not, nobody came to me directly, but that's what we were told. So I was like, I don't have any problems. I went through a divorce. I had a really nasty divorce and stuff like that. Or I didn't have a nasty divorce. Just what happened was
Mhm.
not good.
Right.
So anyway, I really started to struggle. I didn't want to ask for help. I thought it was weak. I was like, I don't have PTSD. I don't have anything wrong with me. Next thing, it went from alcohol, ecstasy, cocaine, meth, shooting up, uh, I spent the next 13 years battling, going in and out of incarcerations, institutions, battling with suicide, two intentional overdoses, because I was sick of my life and I was sick of where it was headed. Relationship after relationship after relationship, toxic relationship after toxic relationship. Another failed marriage was in there as well. Um, Got kicked out of the VA 2 times. Both of the times that I went to the VA were to get out of jail. I'm sorry. One of the times that I went to the VA was to get out of jail. The first time that I went was just to go to treatment. It was more or less like for drug help. Um, and when I went that first time, I remember uh, uh, my I had shot up so much the night before. I mean, it was bad. Like I was like literally not full of holes. I mean, I didn't look like a pincushion, but mentally I knew what I looked like. I slept for 3 days when I got there. Basically, like the only time I got up was to eat, and from there, that none of the times that I went in, none of the times that I got help ma- mattered. Right? Like I'm not gonna say it didn't matter, but it didn't stick. You know why? Because I didn't want it to. I wasn't. You can have all the help in the world, but if you don't want to do something, if you're not mentally there, and that's what I tell people now whenever I work with people and stuff, I'm like, look, bro, if you're gonna waste my time, I have the mentality. I know what it was. I'm not gonna give you. I'm not gonna baby you. I'm not gonna enable you. You're not gonna BS me. You can just come back when you're ready. But the second that I see you, like, I'm not wasting my time. You know what I'm saying? Because I know what I did, and I didn't waste people's time. I would just ghost you. You know. Um, but anyway, that last time that I went down, I was tired. I was a fugitive for 5.5 years. Two of those years, I didn't have electricity. Um, I ran on generators out of my backyard. And look, I have neighbors that can. I had one neighbor, and within a half a mile, and they were like a little ways down, but I'm sure that generator was a little bit of a headache. And let me tell you, so the gas to run this thing was about $900 a month. That's what it cost. So electricity would have been a lot cheaper to
Cheaper.
use, but due to the lifestyle I live, I would have had to have the sheriff department show up and stuff like that because I lived a pretty reckless life and I had pulled a gun on on one of the electricians or whatever they're called, the people from the power company that whenever they came to disconnect the electricity one time. So they weren't coming back to my house to turn the electricity on without the police. Um, so that last time that I went down, I decided to turn my life around. I was sick of the life that I was living. I was sick of everything. Got rid of the reserves. The judge offered me $100 bond and probation, and I refused it. I decided I wanted to sit. I said, according to my track record, I don't exactly come to court, and what is it going to take, for me to come out like not on paper, not on, whatever. And he was like, dude, I have never seen anybody turn down
A
going
hundred
home.
dollar bond? No.
Like I probably had that on my books, honestly. And I said, man, with I lost everything while I was in there. I still had my house, but my house was basically a shell. Everything was stolen. I came out with a trash bag of clothes, say basically, and I knew that if I got out early, if I got out that 3 months prior, or 3 months prior to my release, that I was just gonna go after the people that took everything that I had. You know what I'm saying? So in order for me to, I was starting to make changes, and I was like, I had made it into a program and stuff like that. And that was where I needed to be. That was where I needed to be to gain the knowledge and everything like that. And then from there, um, you know, I really started to invest in myself. I still didn't know what I was. I didn't have goals. The only goal that I had really whenever I got out was to quit sticking needles in my arm, to quit the vicious cycle. You know what I'm saying? Like I knew
Mhm.
that I wanted to be something, but honestly, like when I was in there, I wanted to be an NDT, a non-destructive testing or X-ray tech. But if I would have went and did that, there would be no this. So I
Waiting
got
comes the
out,
way, Geoff.
and then the real war started with once you get out from behind those walls, you're brought back into your same connections. I sold drugs, I did drugs. It's really easy to fall right back into that same vicious cycle. And once you're into a system, it's very hard to break that routine or break that.
Yep. I've dealt with that from the other side.
So that's, um, once to go from that to, okay, so I'm a fast forward some. I went to the VA TBI treatment and stuff like that, the PTSD and TBI treatment. I got out. I started working on my fitness. I started cycling and running and doing all this stuff and doing these like 24-hour endurance events and then running 100 milers and stuff like that. Well, I started dabbling in alcohol and stuff like that. And I would drink here and there. And so I thought as long as I wasn't sticking needles in my arm and smoking meth and drugs and stuff like that, that I would be okay. Well, I really started to struggle with trying to escape the mentality again and like drinking to go to sleep and then like looking for every excuse to drink at an event and like, oh, we just got finished with this workout at this event and it's like not even noon yet. Give me 2 shots of tequila and I'm gonna take a shot of tequila sunrise or a tequila and orange juice or tequila and whatever. And then you know, and then one night I'm too drunk to go home and I'm not answering the phone. I'm sleeping in my truck and like you know in the parking lot at a bar. And, so at that point, that's when I made that post and I was like, you know what?
Mhm.
This is not what I'm going to end up back where I came from. I'm either going to get a DWI. Now, through the course of that, 13 years of addiction, I freaking, what do you call it? I had like 4 DWIs.
Mhm.
So again, the addiction wasn't just the drugs; it was the alcohol as well. So here I am. I get there, and then 90 days after I made that post, Um, Actually, it was 92 days because the weekend it was on a Saturday it was my 90 days. Then there was the Sunday that's 91, and then on a Monday, First Form announced that I was one of their newest sponsored athletes.
Yep.
And then 6 days later, I got another contract affiliation sponsorship with Transcend, and which is the HRT hormone replacement therapy company that I work with as well. So, how did I go from a life of being a fugitive to and also being that I had took ownership and did handle things the way that I did in court, the judge also reduced my felonies to misdemeanors. So I got a second chance at life. I got another opportunity to be a productive citizen again, or to be back and get my life back on track, and got my license back. I voted. Freaking, I have my gun rights and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
huge thing. And then now, I have all these massive goals where initially it was to quit shooting up. It was to quit sticking needles in my arm. Now I have these, other goals, and you are part of the goals that are on my vision board, which my vision board is sitting right here. I'm not going to pull it down, but it's sitting right here in front of me, where my top spot is an elite athlete contract. It's a little bit higher than the contract that I have with First Form, and then a number one best-selling book, and then a top
Hmm.
100 podcast US, top 100 US Apple podcast, which we're not on Apple or Spotify yet,
We
but
will be.
we will be. So we're
Hmm.
working on that right now. We're live on our page and stuff, but we'll be on Spotify, we'll be on
Yep.
Google, we'll be on Apple, we'll be on whatever it is. We're gonna be there, and we're gonna make an impact, and nothing's gonna stop that. You know, um, and then the rest of them are like material things, and the material things are so I can help more people, whether it's the bank account or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So
So Geoff's story is a compelling one, and it's something we'll delve a lot more into it. But we're nearly to that point where I want to talk about affirmations, gratitude, and our goals for the week as we wrap up. So, Geoff, one of the reasons that you and I connected was because of the incredible respect that you and I have for each other. The things that we've gone through, the things that we've done, the things that we've said, the way that we've supported each other. And, this is something that's really important for people to know. Geoff and I have not been in the same physical space in 10 years. At least 10 years since I think that we've actually been in the same room. It has to be at least 10 years.
yeah,
So the friendship that we have is because of things like this, right? Our text threads, the emails, all this kind of stuff going back and forth. The respect that I have for you is one of the deepest respects that I can give to another human being, because I've watched your journey. I've seen you go all like this and watched you rise, and I have incredible respect for your character and for your personal commitment to yourself, your intestinal fortitude. So that's my affirmation for you, is that you are a man worthy of respect and dignity, and all of those things that are on your vision board. We're going to make them happen, because it's what you do. You see it, you manifest it, you do it. So that's my affirmation for you. And I'm grateful for you. So, and I'm grateful for the people who have come on and joined it tonight. And goal is we want to finish that webpage. Want our
yeah.
webpage up and running. And I want to plug in my light so that it doesn't go out in the last few minutes of this.
It happens. Did you not get it charged earlier?
No, I think because we were on it earlier, I think it sucked up some of the energy trying to figure that thing out. So, and I forgot
Oh,
it
that's
wasn't
right.
plugged in.
We had
Yep.
you got. When did you get it? Yesterday, today,
Yeah, got it yesterday.
and
I
then
just, I just, it needs to be plugged in for the duration. That's all. Just so we make
yeah,
sure it doesn't go out.
because the two lights that I have, they last like
Yeah, this one would too. If we hadn't spent
weeks.
2-3 hours trying to get everything straightened out
No,
earlier today.
they'll last like several episodes. They'll last a good 7 days because I'm
Okay.
on coaching calls like 4 or 5 times a week.
So thank you, everybody, for joining, for the comments. We appreciate the feedback and the participation and the support and everything else. We will resume, I think, in episode 2 with our format, now that we've gotten some introductory things and stuff like that, and the first one under our belt. Geoff and I know, are really looking forward to making this thing grow and making it into something that's relevant and worthwhile for the people who choose to give us their time, either because they're joining in on the live podcast, or they're watching it, or they're going to listen to it when we upload it later. So thank you very much to all of you. And we will see you live again next week, unless Geoff manages to convince any other teasers throughout the course of this week. But I know for sure we'll be live again next Saturday night.
I would and there may be some small short pop-ins here and there. I'm not going to make any promises, but you never know. I'm just saying there might be some wild hairs that, we might have some
Might be.
insight on some things. Like there's going to be, this is the word of the week for this week, communication. I would encourage anybody to go ahead and write about that. And then in the chat right now, I'm going to drop our podcast or my podcast email address. Cristina, if you want to do the same thing on your side, mine is Geoff@whatthebluff.com. Am I correct?
Yep. And notice that neither one of us spell our names right. Or normally. Geoff, of course, is Geoff, and I'm Cristina without an H. So I think it's just kind of funny that, again, our diversionary paths, but we both have unique spellings of our names. So exactly. There it is. There's our stuff, and that's how you can get in touch with us. You can follow us on Facebook at What the Bluff on Facebook. Our website will be whatthebluff.com. It's coming to you soon. We're going to get that going. So thanks for joining us.
And if you have Instagram, our Instagram handles are right here on the screen. Don't hesitate to reach out there. I'm on there every day sharing my stories, and I'm going to try to get Cristina more IG.
Good luck with that. And Nico, I'm going to move my camera because you're right. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate your time.
Geoff and Cristina out.
We're out.